Unfiltered opinion.
I'm Jimmy Moyaha.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
In our deep dive this week, we are diving into something quite interesting. Si and I thought we would do a little bit of civil service duty and see if we could help fund the Formula One. Now, this has been quite a contentious topic for the longest time, or at least since we have found out that we could potentially be back at grade 1 status on Kyalami, and we could potentially be in the running to host a Formula One race. We know there are many, many Formula One fans out there, myself and Si included. Shout out to all the Formula One fans. There's a very special Formula One fan that is the reason I am a Formula One fan out there, and that is my father. He got me into Formula One at a very, very early age. So I suppose this segment is dedicated to all of the Formula One fans that would want to know how we'd get there. So, our problem
is that we support Ferrari. I've told you this. If there were two cars in the race and both were Ferrari, they would come third.
You mentioned that, and as you mentioned that, I think back to an iconic moment that I don't know has been repeated in history since it's happened, and it was a Formula One race. I'm trying to remember which circuit it was, where it was in the era of Ferrari dominance, and you've actually got a photo finish. Two cars alongside one another, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, across the finish line. I don't think that moment has ever been repeated in Formula One history.
No, I'm going to find it.
You're going to fight it.
Yeah.
But there have been iconic moments, right? So there was that moment back in the day. There was also the moment that Lewis Hamilton won, I believe it was Silverstone, if I'm not wrong. I think it was Silverstone, won a Grand Prix on 3 tires.
Sure. Yeah, I remember that.
And it was in the season that he won a championship as well. And so it was one of those moments where these are iconic moments that live forever, right? And they will always be around. Whether you're a new Formula One fan or an old Formula One fan, whether you believe in these DRS things that they've got going on, or you remember what a traditional V10 engine used to sound like, right? Formula One is iconic as it is, and South Africa has a unique opportunity to bring it to Africa once again. Now, our problem, and this is where we start this discussion, problem statement is we need to finance the licensing of Formula One. So I had the privilege of speaking to one Toby Fenter, who is the chairman of the Porsche Group. He's the chairman of LMS Distributors, owners of Kyalami. And we had a conversation around the Formula One and what everything would cost and what it would take. And so we're working on rough numbers here, so please don't hold us to the numbers because exchange rate fluctuations and all sorts of other things. But it would cost us about 180 million to go from grade 2 to grade 1 in terms of maintenance costs to upgrade the circuit and add those runoff areas that need to be added. 180 million, folks, in the scheme of what we're about to discuss, is nothing. It is change that the Kyalami team can finance themselves out of their own pockets, and we move on, right?
Yeah.
So our problem statement is that we need a license. And the licensing fee is paid to the FIA. Now, we've estimated this licensing fee ranges everywhere from $25 million to, say, I think $40 million. So we're going to work with a rough number of $30 million at an exchange rate of 18 Rand. 540 million Rand per year must be paid to the FIA for licensing rights of the Formula One. We're not talking infrastructure setup, nothing else. Just for the right to hold the license.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, right?
It's crazy, but it's not,
it's not unreasonable. And I say it's not unreasonable because the exercise we're about to get into is we're going to see if we can find that money. Now, a couple of disclaimers ahead of time. We are looking at the national budget because in other countries, the licensing fee is typically covered by the government, and then the rest of the running costs, operational costs, accommodations, all of that sit within the private sector, and that drives things like tourism and jobs and all those other things. So the government's main responsibility here, what we're saying is if they cover the licensing fee, then the private sector should be able to cover the rest of it because the private sector has the money to cover the rest of it, right? And we create benefits for South Africans. I think a lot of people look at Formula One and like, oh no, it's a spectator sport. You can't be investing this much money into that sort of thing. I see it, and maybe this is because I've done eventing before. If you have a good event, eventing can be an exceptionally profitable business in its own right. If you're able to manage your costs and extract value out of that in terms of ROI, you can actually make a difference. You can pay people, you can hire people. It creates a lot of temporary work, some permanent work, and all of that. Eventing can make a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at this as an event. And our only goal for this discussion is to cover the licensing fees, because we're assuming that once that's covered, the rest of the private sector can be lobbied to cover the rest of the fees, right? In looking at this, when we look at the cuts from a budget perspective at a national level, this is part of the disclaimers. We will not be cutting monies from essential services because we can't do that.
Education,
we can't do that.
security.
We're not allowed to touch the things that South Africans need the most. That is the purpose of our exercise here. We can cut from other areas that we happen to find along the way and based on the numbers that we know, right? I'll kick us off lightly. And lightly is the amount of bailouts for state-owned entities.
Oof.
Right. So, in the...
Yeah, I mean, SAA got what? How many billions?
So, in...
Because we could argue Eskom's important. Don't get me wrong, I love the SAA lounges, and they've got more leg room than Don't Fly Safe Air. Actually, they're flying again. I take that back.
Yeah.
But like that. Yeah, okay. But I mean that boat, but that's gone. Surely, I mean that money's now gone. Like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, so we're looking at the history of bailouts, and obviously we can't assume that the history will reflect the future bailouts that we're going to see, because the minister said no more bailouts, despite giving Transnet a 96 billion rand state guarantee the other day, right?
Yeah.
From the bailouts, I want to look at that. The 96 billion rand state guarantee for Transnet. Transnet is an essential service. We're not saying don't give them 96 billion rand in guarantees if you need to, because we need the logistics channel and the logistics infrastructure.
Yes.
The post office has asked for 3.7 billion rand to be bailed out, despite the fact that they haven't cut executive salaries and they've cut a myriad of jobs at a lower to middle income level, right? In addition to that, the post office, former CEO Mark Barnes had come onto our show. I remember coming onto our radio show mentioning that when he left the post office, it was in a profitable state, right? So the 3.7 billion rand bailout that the post office is looking for now there, some of the bailouts that Eskom is looking for, what the debt that Eskom gets transferred onto the balance sheet, all of those sorts of things. From state-owned bailouts, we can safely assume that several hundreds of billions are being taken out of state-owned bailouts, right?
Yeah.
I am proposing that for one, and again, part of the disclaimers that we're doing, we're only adjusting one fiscal year of government expenditure and seeing how far we can drag that money, right? I propose from government bailouts, whatever bailouts we're going to go to state-owned entities, we cut that amount, or we reduce that amount in totality by 2 billion or 2.5 billion. And I'll come back to why. Only 2.5 billion. So that probably means that instead of a Transnet getting a 96 billion rand guarantee, they get a 94 billion or 93 billion rand guarantee, right? So we can do it from one entity, right? 2.5 billion doesn't seem excessive, does it, Si?
No.
I'm not being excessive here.
No.
Okay. So there's 2.5 billion. Cool.
But we only need 500 million.
No. We're doing this exercise with a purpose, right? So 500 million only gets us the Formula One license for 1 year, right?
Good point.
So we're going to see how much of 1 year's expenditure we can get cut off and how far that can take us with the licensing. Because then we can start to discuss the ripple effect of having Formula One in South Africa for 5 years, for 10 years kind of thing, right? The other areas that exist out there that might not be considered essential by some. Some people might consider this essential to their lives. Others might not. I'm looking at the fleet procurements for ministerial vehicles and
these
the
are the
like.
oaks who get like a luxury German sedan in Pretoria
Right.
and another one in Cape Town.
Right. And that amount...
Now, if Transnet was working, we could put it on a train and overnight it.
You could move exactly. So
Just saying.
on the reduction of the luxury fleets and or the luxury vehicles, right? There's been a recent, I bring it up because there's been a recent adjustment by the minister that you can now, I think the previous limit was an 800,000 Rand vehicle. It's now been bumped up to, I think, a 1.1 million Rand vehicle.
Man, they should get an Mondo CS5 for 330.
No. We're at a 1.1 million Rand vehicle. Now, conservatively assuming...
and to be clear, per city.
Per city, per individual that is qualifying for these sorts of things, right? Now, to be perfectly clear, we don't know how many of these vehicles, I mean, I suppose some ministers or some individuals are allocated one, others are allocated more than one, and those sorts of things. But we assume one per minister, per portfolio, right? And let's say, for the sake of this conversation, on all of those, we're able to cut back perhaps 500 million.
Okay.
I think that's a reasonable amount that we can achieve, right? Again, we're only adjusting for one financial year. So we're up to 3 billion.
So they can just use their car for a year longer.
Right. So we're up to 3 billion. Okay. Next, let's take a look at perhaps the travel and accommodation, because that's come up quite a bit recently. There's been conversations around the excessive travel perks and whether or not people are spending money and shouldn't be and those sorts of things. Now, travel is discretionary. I understand that a part of it from a state security point of view is, and you can only appreciate this when you have an appreciation of how complex state security can get, right? So I understand the rationale behind having multiple
so when
planes.
Gayton Mackenzie goes somewhere, it's not just Gayton.
Yes. So in that situation, I understand some of the mechanics around saying we can't have a Gayton and his deputy fly at the same time on the same plane for cost-saving measures because it is a security risk. If something were to happen to that plane, you've lost both people in that portfolio. It's a security nightmare and all those things.
We might not notice, but I take
the same
your
way we
point.
don't put the president and the deputy on the same flight at the same
but
time.
we would notice if, well, it depends which one went missing.
But this is not a South African policy.
No,
This is
I know
international
people
governments do this.
Who the parents won't fly on the same plane.
CEOs do this as well. This is a known policy to protect. It's almost like a survival thing, right? If something were to happen, it's disaster management and preparedness, right? So we're not saying that some of the expenditure isn't warranted. So let's say from that, I mean, so far this year, we've spent just north of, I'd say, 200 or 250 odd million Rand there, right? So let's say from there, we only save perhaps 100 million on the travels of all of the cabinet portfolios and all of those things, right? That 100 million doesn't seem like it's going to do much. So we're at about 3.1 billion at the moment, right? So the 100 million we can kind of write off as admin costs. Maybe we can repurpose that somewhere else. So we're still just above 3 billion, right? Let's get over the line very quickly, right? Let's wrap it up with an extra 2 billion saved from VIP security. Now, this is, again, contentious topic. We can argue certain people need VIP security, like the president of the country. That would make logical sense. Whether you need a 14-car convoy or a 6-car convoy, that's open for debate. That is a security conversation that we can, have wherever. And please, those of us in our community that have their thoughts around this, we'd love for you to weigh in. Because a lot of people say it's wasteful expenditure. A lot of people say blue lights don't make sense, but they're there.
Who gets the VIP? I mean, I get our president should get some blue lights.
Yes. So currently, based on, and I don't know how much of this has been adjusted for 2025, but if I remember correctly, I did an exercise around this at the start of 2024. VIP protection served about 280 individuals. 200, less than 300 people were at a cost
That seems like a lot of people. I don't know, 280. I mean, I'm thinking.
Well, in a country of 60 million, right?
No, sure. But I mean, I'm thinking, okay, so I mean, I'm thinking we've got a president, I suppose the deputy. I mean, we could be generous and give it to ministers, and we got a lot of those. So I'm up to 30 people. Who else?
Okay, so I'm going to pull up the numbers that I'd done when I'd done this exercise, right? So when I'd looked at this, and I'd kind of done it a while ago to say, what is the expenditure, where does it go, and all of that. So I can actually pull some of that data. But again, as I said, this might be a little bit dated, and the figures might be a little different at the moment. The 2024 year, and this data kind of stays consistent throughout, right? There was around 3.4 billion rand, with a B, spent on VIP protection and security, right? The 280 odd individuals that I mentioned accounted for about 2 billion rand of that 3.4 billion rand, right? So that works out, if you have to average it out per person, to 7.14 million rand per individual per year, right? So what we're proposing here is, for one financial year, just one, folks, just one, that 2 billion gets redirected towards F1. So you won't have your blue lights, you won't have, only for 12 months, only for 12 months. You'll get it back after the year. We promise. We promise you'll get it back after the year. And that 2 billion, coupled with the other 3 billion that we found, puts us at 5 billion. Or 5.1 with the 100,000 and all of that.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's 10 years.
no, we are 300 million rand short for 10 years, because it's about 540 over
okay.
10 years, couple of rounding errors here and there.
Some interest.
Okay, fine.
So
So,
call it F&B.
right. So we're at 10 years, right? What can we do as an economy with 10 years of hosting this event? And would it justify cutting 1 year of expenditure from certain departments?
Yeah. So, I mean, I quickly ran a number, and I was working on the 500 million. Assume 200,000 people attend.
Okay.
And that would be locals. And I mean, like, I don't know a person who hasn't yet contacted me and said, I'm staying with you in Joburg when F1 comes. I'm like, guys, like, my flat's
Don't have space, but
my
okay.
flat's not that big, but assuming it will be in summer, we'll got a balcony.
Yeah.
So 200,000 people, if they spend $2,500 each, that's
2,500 rand or
Rand.
US dollars?
No, ZAR.
Not US dollars.
not ZAR.
Okay, 2,500 rand, yes.
Which is frankly not even probably, that's probably the ticket price. There's your half a billion. But let's say they're actually going to spend $2,500 each, because there's going to be food and accommodation
Okay.
and tickets.
So
and,
$2,500 at 18 puts us over
well, that takes us to $500 million.
Okay.
I can't do the math of how many trillions.
$500 million self-finances this event. It self-finances this license
And it-
over the 10-year period in the first year.
Yeah, and it benefits the economy. So Airbnbs and hotels and restaurants and Uber drivers and all these people will just have more activity. And some people will stay and visit Cradle of Humankind or the Kruger or Cape Town, etc. Some people, like my nephew, will come up and try and get a kids ticket.
Yeah.
And he won't spend anything. But that's not out of realm of reason.
So the average spend on everything excluding travel costs is between $500 and $1,000 for some of these races. In other places, it can go up to $5,000. So I think your $2,500 estimate
Okay, so
isn't
maybe a little high.
No, it's not. I don't think it's unreasonable, right? So but let's contextualize your $2,500 commitment in rand terms. At the moment, let's call it 45,000 rand, right? 45,000 rand is something you spend for. It's one race weekend, because you're not traveling with the Formula One and all of that sort of stuff, right? So, okay, let's say 45,000 rand is excessive for 200,000 people. I'm sure there's 200,000 people in the country that have that kind of money.
Well, and certainly they're foreigners. But I mean, for you and I don't.
Yes. For you and I, that might be worlds apart. And let's assume from a foreigner perspective that is only the foreign spend, right? And let's assume then that no South Africans attend the event and only those 200,000 foreigners come in. That's 200,000 people you can sell stuff to. That's 200,000 people, like you said, that are taking Ubers, that are requiring accommodation, that are requiring local eateries to eat out at and that sort of thing. That is effectively foreign direct investment in some way or form injected into the local economy via spend and via tourism spend in one weekend, because the race doesn't last 17 weeks or 18 weeks or whatever, right? Now, granted, here we're not looking to see if those economies just can be sustained for a year and all of that sort of stuff. Seasonality is a real thing, right? But we're looking to see if we can make a profitable event, right? Yeah. So our license costs 30 million, and we assume that the dollar expenditure will generate us 500 million. That covers the license in its own. So we can take a loan from the government and pay it back in the same year, not incurring interest, is one way to look at it. And then still, the private sector saying we're willing to put up these sorts of infrastructures and things and come to the party and create jobs and all of that. But we can go a step further. And we can say that 10% of all of the revenues and earnings and everything that come in from Formula One must go towards uplifting South Africa. Whether it's by creating jobs or whether it's... We can put in place those caveats for ourselves because we would have earned that money, right? So now we're talking about $50 million, give or take a couple of million, that can go into doing other things and supporting local communities.
And maybe, so the 200,000 number, I'm trying to find capacity at Kyle Army, and I can't find it, but it probably isn't 200, because I know they give the figures, but that's always over the race weekend.
Yes.
So Hanguru Ring had 350,000, but that's over 4 days.
Yes, so there's sprint race build-ups, all of that. That sort of stuff.
And your practices, etc., etc.
And our 2,500 figure spread up over 4 or 5 days is $500 a day. That is a reasonable spend for some people, especially for those that have the currency purchasing power that isn't the rand.
Yeah.
Right? Let's be honest. Foreign currencies go a lot further when you come into South Africa. So that's not an unreasonable number to get to. So the nexus of the conversation and where we're getting to is cutting back on 1 year's expenditure could finance this thing for 10 years.
Yeah.
And we could live with
fortune
and make us an absolute fortune that we can put back into our own people.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is like easy math.
This is basic math.
As opposed to hard math.
But we're not prioritizing easy math decisions, because then it means we have to cut back on things like VIP protection.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I go back to what we were cutting back. I mean, like in minister vehicles and travel and...
Yeah, so remember, again, for those that missed the start of the conversation, the disclaimer was we are not allowed to cut back from essential services like education, like social grants and relief there and all of that sort of stuff for what is currently considered essential expenditure, right? So non-essential expenditure, and again, our view of non-essential might differ from the views of those out there, but that's what we'd love to get. Would you, as a South African, get on board with this plan? And do you think we've cut from the necessary areas? Do you think we've missed areas? Do you think we're being unreasonable in cutting 1 year's of fiscal expenditure to finance a 10-year project?
I vote yes.
You vote yes, I vote yes. Folks out there, give us your thoughts, give us your opinions. Let us know what you think. If we have gotten our math completely haywire, please let us know. If you think we are being overly ambitious, let us know that as well. But that's the deep dive, and that's where we're going to leave it. And we wrap things up with Investor Insights. We are taking a look at some very interesting leases. Some of them date back to apartheid days. And we're going to be taking a look at the impact of those leases in today's world. This came up completely accidentally. There was a debate around what the city of Joburg wants to do with the land that is currently being leased to an entity like the Killarney Country Club. According to some reports, the Killarney Country Club is on a R2 per annum lease agreement until 2040. Yes, I said it slowly. R2 per annum per year, right, until 2040. Now, I have nothing against the Killarney Country Club. I'm sure this is a commercial arrangement that they put in place for many, many years. In fact, this commercial arrangement was in place before the democratic dispensation of South Africa. It was renewed post the democratic dispensation and extended to 20. I think it was initially set to end around 2020 or 2025.
It was going to end in 2020. It was extended in 92.
Okay, to 2040. Right, so extended just
under
before
the apartheid regime.
There we go.
Can anyone say Ngiyama Trust?
Well, see, okay, so and this is the thing. This is part of the things that we need to look at is from a commercial standpoint, does that still make sense? Now, yes, you can go fight it legally in court and say, we want to terminate this, we want to do this, we want to do this. But something that we've all learnt, and we've learnt this courtesy of an organization called Transnet, is there is a clause in arrangements and agreements. It's a force majeure clause that allows people to just terminate things, right? Now, whether or not that clause is in place in the Killarney Agreement or not, we don't know. But what we're looking at here is it time to be looking at some of these old agreements again? Is it time to be revisiting agreements that...
Some of these apartheid era sudden lock-in just before democracy agreements? Hell yeah.
Especially if they have ramifications on... I mean, a city like the city of Joburg has its own faults and flaws as to why they're not generating enough revenue from that perspective. And it's not the responsibility of someone like the Killarney Country Club to be able to generate those revenues. But one can argue quite easily that R2 per annum for over, if I'm not mistaken, it's over 100 hectares of land. 111.6 hectares of land, to be more specific. Right? To pay R2 from probably about 1970 or so to 2040 in a day and age where if I could find a R2 lease, I'd also lock it in for 40 years.
I would sign it now.
Exactly.
And membership discounts, I'm having a look. So we ignore the kiddies one. It goes up from sort of 10 to 30,000 a year for membership. Mostly this is all around playing golf. I don't play golf, so I got no skin in this game.
Neither do I, so yeah.
But I mean, you got to think that land is worth a little more than
R2 a year.
And I know what everyone's saying is like, oh, the Killarney Club will go bust. Well, I got two up. I got two views. Like tough. Like if the numbers don't add up, just
you should run a business.
Yeah. Secondly, okay, we'll be kind. We'll just take 30% of all club fees.
Okay.
As a city.
30% of all club fees as an alternative to
like
the
what
R2.
Apple takes.
Yeah. Or, I mean, look, at this point, even if we say R2 a month, the lease agreement goes to 24 Rand. It's surely better than collecting R2 a year. Right? At this point, anything is better than that. But nonetheless, we cannot get involved in legal agreements because we are not law experts. We haven't seen the contract. We're just throwing in our 2 cents to say perhaps R2 per year on 111 hectares of land might be the reason why people have conversations around expropriation without compensation. And we're going to leave it on that note because we need to get into our pick. We need to get into our unfiltered opinion of the week. And there's quite a bit to discuss. So for our pick, I thought we wouldn't add something to the wall necessarily. City Lodge last week celebrated 40 years. And
being listed or as a business?
I think it's as a business, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. City Lodge, founded 1 August 1985.
There we go. Right, as a business.
Hans Endler.
Right.
Hans.
Okay. So City Lodge recently celebrated 40 years as a business. They are very, very critical in the tourism space with their footprint and everything that they do between all of their City Lodge brands and all of that. So no one is contending around that. City Lodge, I've liked for quite some time.
Yeah, I know, but the market has been...
The market has not agreed with that. And I thought we'd look at that. I thought we'd look at that business and say, is it a management problem? Is it a returns problem? All of the businesses in the pandemic went through some suffering from a tourism and a hospitality perspective. But the likes of Tsogo Sun, the likes of Sun International have bounced back seemingly a lot stronger than City Lodge has.
Yeah.
City Lodge continues to be under pressure.
So there's been some challenges there. And I think partly, I mean, this used to be a 70 Rand stock. It's now a 4 Rand stock. And to be clear, between that, there was what the JSE called a massive dilution from their rights issue. So there were definitely some challenges there. And market, as Wayne McCurry always reminds us, has memories. A lot of people lost a lot of money on this particular stock. Okay, so there's always that. There's also that they've been doing a lot of refurbishing. So I know someone who stayed at one of their hotels and there was refurbishing happening. Now, they said to the person, sorry, here's a free night for next time. But it just wasn't a particularly grand experience.
And they've been toying around with their menu, introducing new eating options and a new dinner menu and all of that. And that's done good wonders. Well, it's done wonders for their revenues as well.
Just because you never used to be able to get... So, there was very limited there. I mean, some of the city, and it depends, are you at a road lodge or a city lodge or a town lodge or a garden court? No, it's a garden court, the fancy ones. Anyway. And some of them just had like vending machines. I mean, I stayed in the one outside Cape Town Airport, and it's like a vending machine in a room not much bigger than this table, but fit for purpose. So they've done a lot more with the beverage and food side, food and beverage. That's doing really well for them. They've been refurbishing a heck of a lot. And I'm with you. I used to own this stock way back in the day. I like it, and it keeps on dipping down to sort of $4. And the short answer seems to be buy it at 4 and
that's it. So I'm looking at a chart and I'm like, since we've come up from 4 has just become its new anchor. And I don't know, again, for a stock, as you said, that at some point was a 70 Rand stock, is 4 Rand an accurate reflection of the footprint
the dilution
and the performance?
has been insane.
Yes, the dilution, of course, would have to have a factor there. We can't ignore that.
My data shows me
Let me see if I can find when the dilution took place.
No, I've got it here. So this is the most terrifying chart ever. So back in August 2020, they had 37 million shares. They now have 562 million shares. No, it was diluted like 12 to 1. I mean, it was massive dilution. So you could take technically the 4 Rand price and say it's a 48 Rand price, but still below the 70. I think it's a great business. I think it's incredibly well run. To your point, Southern Sun's done much better. I mean, they all have. And I remember when we got the Omicron and borders got shut down in late 2021. And I quickly picked up some City Lodge and some Sun Internationals. I've taken profit on both, but the City Lodge
still feels like it hasn't moved,
it's
right?
Kind of almost at the price I sold at.
For context, the Sun International share price in some cases, if I'm looking at it, is up 300% or so from things like the pandemic lows, right? City Lodge, granted, I mean, to go from 2 Rand up to 4 Rand is 100% gain if we look at it from that perspective.
But Sun International went from 5 Rand to 45 Rand.
Do you see what I mean? Do you see? So has the stock been bearing the brunt of... And I don't know what it's been bearing the brunt of, if we're saying it's been bearing the brunt, because it's just been going through...
Why is it so hated? It's a good
question.
That's it. Because it's an important thing. When you find a stock that you like and you think the market's overlooked it, that's well and good. The question you got to ask yourself is, why is the market going to start looking at it? What is going to change?
Yes.
That's hugely important. And in this point, I mean, I don't know what's going to change for City Lodge, but to the point is that sort of between the 4 and 5, it is kind of trading that range. And if you pick it up close to the 4, you can quite possibly drop it close to the 5.
That's it, right? That could be a good range trade. Again, not financial advice. That's not what this show does. You know the disclaimers. We are sharing our thoughts and our opinions.
And a low double-digit PE, this is not expensive.
It's not. It really isn't, right? Perhaps there's something amiss there. Perhaps there's more that we need to be looking at.
It's paying a dividend.
And it's paying a dividend. Just keeps getting better, right? The gift that keeps on giving at 4 Rand a share. Again, not financial advice, folks. Speak to your financial advisors if you're interested in that in that stock or in any other stocks for that matter. That's where we're going to leave it. We're going to perhaps revisit some of these stocks at another time, but we've run out of time this time around. And before we go, we're going to leave you with an unfiltered opinion of the week because, well, those are important. This week's unfiltered opinion is not necessarily an opinion of our own, but it is something that has happened and we'd like to get your thoughts on it. We'd like to get everyone to just weigh in on it. Si, do you remember the non-profit known as Mold, Empower, Serve, MES? Does that ring a bell at all?
No.
Okay. And I don't expect it to, because it probably doesn't ring a bell with anyone out there. But if I were to tell you that this non-profit had a 14-year partnership, now it starts to ring a bell, with KFC And they were the non-profit behind adding hope for
The
2 rand.
hopes.
Yes. They are currently undergoing some investigations for allegations of corrupt activity, to which KFC has confirmed that they've pulled the funding for the Add Hope project. So, the unfiltered opinion...
Does that mean I don't get harassed to give hope, or does the hope go to somebody else?
KFC, that's a question. Please let us know what happens
While
now.
you're answering it, we'll have a couple of burgers with sliced cheese in it.
He missed, KFC, he missed it completely. Just a bucket. No, burgers, not snack burgers, a bucket. But yes, that's the unfiltered opinion, and it is around that Add Hope, it is around those sorts of initiatives. Those initiatives form an important part of supporting some of the most vulnerable members of society that we can find. And an entity like KFC to be able to support and sustain this initiative for 14 years, it does go a long way, right?
Yeah.
And
I always give hope, and then you hope that the hope gets to someone who needs hope. Because otherwise there is no hope.
That's all. That's all. Sai's just trying to give hope. That's all he wants to do, right? Folks, that's our question to you. Not from our perspective, but from the perspective of what we've uncovered around the scandals, is in a situation like this, where Sai wants to give hope, and hope doesn't seem like it's been given, what do we do? That's the unfiltered opinion. That's where we're going to leave the show. Thanks for tuning in, folks. All of the conversations are curated for your viewing pleasure. Until next time, investing isn't hard. Just try it.